Games, when done right, can be an experience to behold rather than just a time waster. The gameplay itself can be magical in a way. Whether the game is a story-driven narrative or an open-world exploration, there is much to behold in games like these. Artwork is another way to make the game beautiful, as a masterful team of designers can make scenery beyond this world. But gameplay and artwork aside, today I want to discuss a game's OST. An OST, or an official soundtrack, is a game's full track of music during each part of the game. Some people disregard the importance of a soundtrack. In fact, some people mute the music altogether in games. In some cases, that is doing a game a complete injustice, as the music can be very uplifting and mood-setting. It can be dramatic and saddening at times too. However, there are some games that have partial or complete catastrophes in their soundtrack. So today, I plan to go over why a soundtrack is important to a game and give some examples of good or bad soundtracks. The big question to answer here is why a soundtrack is important to a game. Let me set the scene. You're playing a game with an emotional moment. Perhaps there was a death to someone who was important to the narrative of the story. You're in the middle of a cutscene saying goodbye to the dying character, when all of a sudden, clunky, out-of-place music starts to play. Something like that would really take you out of the moment. While that example is hard to find among the games of today, similar examples can be found in different aspects of the game. A well-known example of this is the press F to pay respects moment in Call of Duty Advanced Warfare. Although it isn't soundtrack related, it is an example of how a moment of grief in the game is ruined by an off-putting task like that. Back on topic though, the soundtrack can add to a moment perfectly. If you're looking out on an open field, a track that accompanies the feeling of isolation and vast openness can be a perfect combination. If you're in an action sequence, some hype-inducing music can elevate the intensity of the act. A game's score can bring its scenes to new heights, or it can make them crash and burn. It's all about capturing the emotion created by the current scene into a musical form. Many games do this well, while others cannot. Most OSTs for games are just good or acceptable, but there are a few that go above and beyond expectations. An undisputed king of good OST is Minecraft. I myself have used its music on my channel, on other channels, and even for video projects. The timeless nature of the songs is incredible. Minecraft has no real scenes like story-driven games do, so C1418, who created Minecraft's OST, needed to compose a track that would work wherever the player is. And that's exactly what he did. When the game first came out, many of us muted the music while playing single player as we considered it annoying and felt it got in the way. However, I'm sure many feel the same as I do when I say that hearing Minecraft's music takes us back, and that we wish we hadn't taken the music for granted. But I'll move on to another game track before I get too caught up in this one. As I said in my last video, a full Minecraft video will be coming out soon. Anyways, another game that has really well done music is DDLC, or Doki Doki Literature Club. DDLC, for those that haven't heard of it, is a visual novel with a not-so-tiny spin on it. Despite this game coming out in 2017, I do not want to spoil the game for the few that haven't played or watched it yet. If you are one of those people, I fully recommend doing so. Unsponsored game plugging aside, the track for this game fits it to a T. Each character has their own respective theme that captures their behavior cleanly. The non-character theme music is also masterful. Even the music for the spoiler parts is well crafted. High praises to Dan Salvato, who not only composed the music, but made the game itself. I believe that's how some of the best tracks are made, from the creator of the game. The one who shapes the narrative of the story will understand how to make a good track to fit his or her story, assuming they can compose music, that is. But of course, not every game has a magical track, or at least they have a few rotten eggs in there that can ruin the moment in a lot of ways. A well-known example of this is in Yoshi's New Island, which came out in 2014. A few tracks in the OST are notorious for being cringe-inducing, especially the Yoshi clan. This one in particular is very odd and not well done. The clunky and childish sounds playing makes it sound very unprofessional. On top of that, it's at the beginning of the game, which sets up a bad example for the rest of the game's score. And this isn't the only song at the beginning that has this bad sounding tune. The title screen theme also features this kazoo sounding mess, and because you have to hear this every time you boot up the game, it makes it stick out that much more. Another example of strange sounding tracks comes from Super Paper Mario, which came out in 2007. The strangest sounding music from this game has to be River Twygz' Bed. The game is no stranger to gloomy music, but this is downright creepy. It's very out of place, that's for sure. Another offsetting track is King Crocs' theme. I know it intentionally has a very strange sound to it, but there are other tracks in this game and others that are able to pull off a eerie yet good sounding music. At least for these two tracks, they are later in the game, so it isn't like how Yoshi's New Island is. One thing that is kinda bizarre is that these are new age games. Older generations of gaming, such as in the NES and Atari, had games with terrible 8-bit sounding tracks. But the older games were known to be like this, and it was excusable at the time. The first old school game to be truly praised for its good soundtrack was Myst. The ironic part is that the game's designer almost didn't include music, as he thought it would be too distracting. How wrong he was. But these games I mentioned are new games, so they don't really have an excuse. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not picking on Mario games specifically here. Yoshi's New Island has some really good sounding tracks later in the game, and Super Paper Mario is actually my favorite Paper Mario game. I'm just saying that these particular few tracks really skewed the feeling in some cases. In conclusion, music in gaming is very important to get right. When it's pulled off, the game is instantly transformed for the better. When it's not done correctly, the results are less than stellar. Many people refuse to play games with bound soundtracks, and I can't say I blame them. The important thing for a game designer to understand from videos like this is that they need to make sure they put good effort in all areas of the game, even if some seem less important than others. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you all next time.